This is a video going over number 4 from the polynomial quiz. So here is the function I gave you. Negative x to the 4th minus 2x cubed minus 8x minus 16. And the first thing you're tasked with doing is find all the zeros of the roots, both real and complex or imaginary, if they exist. So you had to test, first of all, some zeros, and most of you did that, but another thing to make sure you always look at, is it possible to factor by grouping, particularly if you have 4 terms? And I notice here, if I let's take out a negative x cubed from the first, and I would get x plus 2. And if I take a negative 8 out of the second, I also get x plus 2. So this equals, if I factor out an x plus 2 from both, then I get a negative x cubed minus 8. Okay, so we know that negative 2 is a root. And let's take out a negative from the negative x cubed minus 8. So just factoring out a negative and putting it in front. So x cubed plus 8. Well, I actually know a root here. And why I know a root here is if I set this equal to 0, I get x cubed equals negative 8, and the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. But I want to find all imaginary roots too. So let's break x cubed plus 8 down to a quadratic. So I know negative 2 goes in, and I'm going to put my placeholders for the quadratic term and the linear term. So bring down the 1, negative 2, 4, 4, and then I get negative 8. And as I already know, the remainder is going to be 0. So this this polynomial is now negative x plus 2. And then we knew negative 2 was a root again. So I've got another x plus 2. And I've got the quadratic that was left over when I synthetically divide. So x squared minus 2x plus 4. And unfortunately that, as we kind of suspected, doesn't factor. So I've got to use the quadratic formula, and we should suspect that it's going to be imaginary roots here. So negative b plus or minus b squared. So 4 minus 4 times a times c over 2a. So the imaginary are going to be 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 12 over 2. Negative always comes out as I, and I also can take the square root of 4 out as 2. So 2 plus or minus 2I root 3 over 2. So the 2 imaginary roots are 1 plus or minus I root 3. Okay, so first question was find all roots. The roots would be negative 2, and that's a double root, and then 1 plus or minus I root 3. So those are the 4 roots. Again, negative 2 is a double root, so I'm going to count that twice. Okay, so part B is then writing it as linear factors, so in fully factored out form. So this function f of x is negative x plus 2 squared. And then I've got to write these imaginary roots as linear factors. And remember, it's always x minus the root, so x minus 1 plus I root 3. And x minus 1 minus I root 3. And that was all. So the hard part was getting the roots at the beginning, but also then remembering the factoring out of the negative, because the leading term is negative 1, and that should be the same in this linear factored form.